Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Om Akyanantamirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshunumilitamina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So we're continuing our study of Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 4. In the last passage we discussed the enlightenment of the karma yogi and his enlightenment, his detachment from the material world and material consciousness. And in discussing that, in the last verse of the passage, this is verse number 23, it was mentioned about the enlightened person, Yagnaya Acharita Karma Samagram Pavaliyate. That this enlightened person, he acts in this world, but only for the purpose of yajna. So most people act in this world because they have some desire to be satisfied, isn't it? You act in this world. Why do you play video games? Why do you play video games? To have fun. So that is your desire. Yes, that is natural. You also act in this world. You go to a job so you can make money. There's some desire motivating every activity. People go to the club. Why do people go to the club? Such dark place, so loud, you can't even hear the other person speaking. You have to scream very loudly. I was at work the other day. Like this. Actually crazy situation. But they still, why do they go? Because there's some desire to be fulfilled. So the difference between the enlightened person acting in this world and the person who is not enlightened acting in this world is that the enlightened person has no kama, no desire, selfish desire to be fulfilled. Whereas the unenlightened person has so many desires that he's trying to fulfill. Bahu Shaka Hiyananta Shah, Buddhayo Abhavasayina. Krishna also says this in the Gita, that Bahu Shaka means many branches of their desires. And their desires are ananta, they're unlimited. So the enlightened person, he acts in this world without the selfish desire and only for the purpose of yajna. So here you can see this. Yagnaya acharita karma samagram pavaliyate. He acts for the purpose of yajna. So we're going to double back really quick and just look at this yajna concept a little bit. The first time we encounter this yajna concept is in chapter 3, verse number 9. This is the first time this concept makes its appearance in the Bhagavad-Gita. The context is chapter 3. Krishna is telling Arjuna that you have qualification for working in this world. Karma neva adhikarishta. You are qualified for working in this world, not for renouncing it. Just like sometimes when you're frustrated with life, you think, I'll renounce this world. I'll join some monastery. Or I'll go to the forest and I'll go to Goa and do some yoga. Intensive. Yes, people have this idea. When they're frustrated with the world, they want to renounce it. But Krishna says you don't have qualification for renunciation. And it's not like you could just pack up one day and just go. You can do that, but after 2 weeks, you'll come back. Because you don't have qualification for renunciation. Just like people go for this, what they call it, vipassana meditation. So you go for a 10-day retreat. Then you come back, finished. You cannot stay like that constantly. Even they will make some, maybe they're telling the truth also. I usually tend to think they're lying, but they may tell the truth like, oh, that was such an awesome, wonderful event. I could have did that all day. I could do that so why are you here? Because you don't have adhikar for staying like that. After 10 days, you're running back to the city. I remember once going with a friend with a group of friends from Chicago. We all grew up in the city. And we went to one rural area to visit another friend. And we were just there for a weekend. So literally like maybe 3 days and 3 nights and 2 days. We weren't even there for very long. And we left, and there was like nothing to do. The Wi-Fi was very weak, which you could understand the situation. The Wi-Fi was weak. We were already that was already like 50% suffering. And then finally, we left the rural area. We came back to the city on the train. And as the train was pulling into the city, one of my friends, he took a sigh of relief. He went, civilization. So why he felt? Because he doesn't. All of us, we didn't have the qualification for living like that for a long period of time, at least in the present state of awareness. So in chapter 3, Krishna was saying that Arjuna, you have adhikar, you have qualification for working in the world, not for renouncing the world. So Arjuna may have a doubt about this, but if I work in the world, that causes bondage. We've discussed this concept many times, but a few new faces here, so we'll just briefly mention it again. When you work in the world, the word for work is karma. It means action or work. So every action produces a fruit. And then that fruit you have to enjoy, and you do more karma. The fruit kind of compels you to do more karma. Just like when you work a job, so that's karma, and then you make money, and then that money inspires you to do more work so you can make more money, isn't it? That's just a simple way of thinking about it. So karma produces what's called this karma pala, the fruit of work. And that impels you to do more karma. And that way you remain bound up in the world of karma. That is called as samsara. So the world of samsara consists of karma bondage, where you're bound to do activities. In fact, in 3.5, Krishna mentions that even if you don't want to do anything, you are forced to do things, sometimes against your will. Just like, I'm going to give too many examples, but just like sometimes you go on the computer, and your intention is to write your essay or write your post for Instagram or do something responsible on the computer. But sometimes it's like against your will, like the message comes up, you're like, I'm not going to look at that. And the mind's like, the hell, no. And then sometimes if one gets into more dangerous areas of the computer also. The computer can be a dangerous place. And against your will, you're forced to do things. This is also experienced. So karma creates, the world of samsara creates bondage to this world. It's hard to get out of that. So Arjuna is concerned. You're saying that I have adhikar for karma, but karma causes karma bandhana. It causes karmic bondage. Therefore, I don't want to do this karma. So then Krishna says in 3.9, this is the first place where we see this yagya word. Yagnartha kamanon anyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha. So Krishna says, aside from the purpose of yagya, yagna artha means the purpose of yagya. Aside for work that has the purpose of yagya, work causes bondage in this world. So the idea here is that work that is done for yagya does not cause bondage in this world. Krishna doesn't exactly elaborate in this section what that exactly means per se, but he says that work done for yagya does not cause bondage in this world. Tat artam karma konteya. Therefore, only for that purpose, tat artam means for that purpose, the purpose of yagya, you should work in this world. So the word yagya has two meanings. The word yagya means Vishnu. Yagya vai Vishnu, that's what we heard from the commentators. And the word yagya also means work that is offered to Vishnu. So the meaning of yagya means you work for the sake of Vishnu, or you work and you offer your work to Vishnu, to God, to the Supreme Lord. So these are the two meanings of the word yagya. So aside from this work, all other work causes bondage in this world. So if you're not doing work for Vishnu, or you're not offering your work to Vishnu, then your work is causing karma pala, and it causes you to be bound up. You understand? So how many people here are doing nice yagya? Anyone doing yagya? Yagya? Oh, one person, two people. A little. Okay. So that little bit that you do for Vishnu, that part, you get free from the karma pala. And the other stuff, then it causes karma pala, you get bound up. So then this is the first place where we see this principle. So if you don't want to be bound up, you should do work for yagya. The next place we see this is in 3.14 and 3.15. And I drew a diagram that you see on the board here for this set of verses. Krishna is talking about how yagya sustains the world. And the class we had on this was that yagya, which also translates as sacrifice, is the sustaining principle for all relationships. Your relationship with other humans, your relationship with animals, your relationship with nature, they're all sustained on the principle of sacrifice. Sacrifice means that you're getting something from others, and therefore you have to give back.
even though sometimes the giving back is a little bit austere. You don't want to give anything. Animals give so much to humans. We discussed this. The rivers give so much to humans. Humans, can you imagine if we had to exist only by ourselves without the help of other human beings on the planet? They have movies like that also, right? Where you like wake up and it's just like you're the only person on earth. There's like two people. So in this way, we have a relationship with nature, with other creatures. We have a relationship with wisdom teachers. These are different types of relationships. And they are sustained on the principle of yajna. And when yajna is not performed, that means you're taking without giving back. And that's what causes the destruction of any relationship. So you can look, even if you think of your romantic relationships, for those of you who have or had or are meditating on having, then you can, specifically if you had the relationship before and it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Basically, it doesn't work because someone is taking and someone is not giving back. That is basically, they don't want to make a sacrifice. So in order for any relationship to be successful, there has to be, they call it as give and take. There should be some yajna. So Krishna speaks about this, that it is yajna is the principle that is sustaining the world. We take from nature and we don't want to give back. So now nature is restricting what it gives. And now everyone is fighting over limited resources, and that's causing many wars, and many wars will be there to come because of this. So in this way, as we mentioned in that class when we discussed this, it is yajna or sacrifice that makes the world go round. Or it is yajna that makes your relationship go round. It is the circle of life. There was a song like that from The Lion King. The Circle of Life. That was a good song. And the heart of that song is, or the real meaning of that song, I don't know, I don't remember the words, but the essence of that song is yajna. It is yajna that is what makes the world go round. So Krishna mentions this, from yajna comes rain, from rain comes food, from food comes humans, because food is transferred into blood, blood is transferred into semen, transformed into semen, and then that produces humans. And then humans continue work in this world, and that work should be based on the principle of yajna. So if this yajna principle is gone, then that means all this stuff starts to dissipate and everything falls apart. These activities, Krishna says, comes from the Vedas, and the Vedas come from the Brahmakshara, that means the indestructible Brahman. And so he makes a point in 3:15, and this is a very important point in regards to the fourth chapter that we're studying. Tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yajna pratishtitam. So he says, therefore, because work is coming from the Vedas, and the Vedas are coming from basically God, Brahman, the imperishable, all-pervading Brahman. He says, therefore, tasmat sarvagatam brahma, the all-pervading Brahman, nityam yajna pratishtitam, is eternally situated in acts of yajna. So the important point, this is a very important point in regards to fourth chapter. So this Brahmakshara, Sarvagatam, which is all-pervading, is eternally situated in acts of yajna. And the idea of this verse is that it is yajna that will reveal that Brahman. As a general principle, in the way that you might be able to appreciate it, by sacrifice, you get greater and greater revelations, right? By sacrifice, how you can say, it is by sacrifice. This is a general principle. By sacrifice, you can see or go deeper into something, right? Even in your relationships, when you sacrifice, they reveal a new level of depth to them, right? So the idea is that by yajna, there's a higher revelation. As sometimes it's also said, this is one of my favorite phrases, spiritual phrases, die to live. If you imagine yajna like a fire, then you want to go into that fire and kind of destroy your old self, so to speak, and reemerge as a higher, more enlightened, healthier person. You've heard this for a diet. Look, I always have the image of a phoenix bird. I don't know if that's a mythological creature, but the phoenix bird is emulates himself in fire, turns to ashes, and out of that fire he arises renewed. So the principle of sacrificing oneself for a higher cause, and in doing so, there's a higher revelation. So Brahmakshara means the absolute reality.
that is now concealed from our vision because of material energy, because of Maya. We'll hear about these things later. And so if we want the revelation of that spiritual reality, it is only possible by the acts of yajna. Brahman is situated in those acts of yajna. In other words, people will not be able to have higher spiritual realizations unless they're willing to sacrifice themselves for the higher cause. Right? You can't, just like some of us now, we started going to the gym, but you cannot get stronger unless you go regularly and sacrifice, the time, the effort, the struggle to do a pull-up. Some of our guys in the ashram can't do one pull-up also. And so when they see it, they become discouraged. I'll not do this exercise. Without making the effort to build the strength, you will not be able to get stronger. This is just I'm giving crude examples there. And so if you want deeper realizations in spiritual life, just like nowadays, sometimes people say, if God exists, then you should show him to me. There's a very common argument against a spiritual person. But they don't realize that the realization of something higher it's an existential thing. It's not just like some commodity that you just pull out of your pocket. Oh yeah, hold on, got God right here. And, oh, there he is, there's God. No, it's an existential thing, how you exist. And the deeper you exist, then the deeper revelation comes. So the Brahmakshara, the eternal Brahman, is situated in acts of yajna. Only by yajna is that absolute reality revealed in successive degrees. So anyway, this is the first place where we hear about yajna. So going back to chapter 4, this is where we're actually at. We're on verse 424, but we're gonna we're starting with verse 424 here. So the enlightened person, he acts only for the purpose of yajna, because his interest is to have that higher realization. In order to have the higher realization, there has to be removal of coverings. And those removal of coverings take place by deeper degrees of sacrifice. So in verse 24, it describes his meditation when acting in this world for yajna. This is a very famous verse in Gita, actually. Brahmarpanam brahmahavir bhagmagno brahmanahutam brahmaiva tena gantavya brahma karma samadhina. This is chapter 424. So Brahma Arpanam, the word Arpanam means the ladle, which is used in the yajna. Many of us, this is unfamiliar to us, but they have these fire yajnas, and one fire is there, so they have one spoon for pouring the ghee in. This is called the ladle, Arpanam. So the Arpanam, the ladle which is used to offer into the fire, that is Brahman. This is the mentality of this person who's acting this way. Brahmahavir, the ghee offered into the fire, that is also Brahman. Brahmagno, the fire, that is also Brahman. Brahmanahutam, the Brahmana who performs the yajna, he is also Brahman. So the idea is that the different components of his work he sees as spiritual. Every component of the work he actually sees from the consciousness that it's Brahman. And he performs his work in that way. And as such, Brahmaiva tena gantavyam, Brahma karma samadhina. Such a person will certainly reach Brahman because his whole absorption is in Brahman. Brahma karma samadhina. Brahma karma samadhina means because he's absorbed in Brahman. Everything he sees is actually from that platform. When you look at the material world, what do you see? We see, I live in the East Village, so I see crazy people. I see a lot of bars. I see Blink, that's a gym that I go to. I see the material world, basically. And then I see it as a place for my enjoyment, more or less. More than less. So we see, in other words, we don't see the world as spiritual. We see the world a separate world, and we're separate entities from the absolute reality. And thus, we try to enjoy it separately. So here, the vision is that the whole reality is actually Brahman. And so Brahma Karma Samadhi, when he acts with that awareness that the whole reality is Brahman. And by Brahman, it means that it's pervaded by Brahman, it's supported by Brahman, it exists because of Brahman. And therefore, he keeps his focus always on that absolute reality without being deviated by the external atmosphere, which is very hard to do. One gets deviated very quickly. I try to focus on Brahman also means the Veda, the sacred text. And then as soon as my phone gets a notification, then I'm pulled away from Brahman towards another Brahman. The Instagram notification is also Brahman. If I had that vision, that could also count, but I'm not having that vision. I don't see Brahman, I just see an Instagram notice or Facebook notice or whatever it is like that. So this person is Brahma Karma Samandina. He's seeing the whole reality as connected to Brahman. I see Brian has a question, but before you ask your question, one final point here. We mentioned this earlier in 269, one of my favorite verses. What is night for the common man is a time of awakening for the self-control. And the time of awakening for the common man is night for the introspective sage. Sanisha Pashatomani. There's a very important verse of the Gita, actually. So Krishna is saying that what is night for the common man. So what is night for the common man is Brahman, spiritual thing, spiritual reality. They're completely asleep to that. That is the time of awakening for the sage, the introspective sage. And the time of awakening for the common man is what? This universe of sense objects and sense gratification, what they're trying to pursue. He says that is night for the introspective sage. But the language he uses is very important. Sanisha Pashtratomuni. He says that is night for that person. Pashtratomuni. But he says the Muni sees it. Even though he's asleep to the world of sense objects, Pashrita means he sees it, but he only sees it in relationship to the higher reality. And so he's asleep to it, to the world as a place for my enjoyment, for exploiting. He just sees it and is not disturbed in that way because he's awake to that Brahman reality. So in this way, 424 describes the way this person works and his awareness when working in this world. Is it clear? Is it clear? Yeah.
What was the name of the person that sees only Brahman?
He's a yogi. And the language was used as Muni, and the verse I just quoted, Sapashato Muni. Sanisha Pashato Muni. Muni, a sage, a yogi. Krishna will use different nomenclatures, Pandit, learned person, like this. You understand? So when you can practice this when you walk outside. When you see that crazy person on the corner screaming something, you say he is also Brahman. And Brahman in the sense that he is supported by Brahman, and Brahman pervades him also. You don't see them as separate from that spiritual reality. So after this, Krishna gives a long list of different types of yagyas mentioned in the sacred text. So I just listed them here, and you can read the purports if you want to know more details about these different types of yagyas. But Krishna mentions the different types of yagyas, so I'm just going to read those verses, and then we're going to read 430 to 33, which is the punchline that Krishna's trying to make here. So we'll just look at these verses for those of you who have Gita in front of you. This is verse 25. These are just a list of different types of yagyas one could perform in the world. Krishna says here, some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them. And some offer sacrifices in the fire of the supreme Brahman. Some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, those are like student monks, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses and the fire of mental control. And others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses and the fire of the senses. Others, who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of the mind and senses, these are yogis, offer the function of all the senses and of the life breath as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind. This means yoga chittavritti nirodha. For those of you who are familiar with Yoga Sutra, the goal of yoga is to stop all thought, all feeling, all emotions. That sounds very appealing, right? Very attractive. In the yoga community, they always say it's about opening your heart and all these things, but Patanjali says no, it's about stopping all thought, all feelings, all emotions, and being situated in self. So this yogya, that is also a type of yogya. Next verse, having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and others by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. And the last verse in this long list of yagyas, still others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance, pranayama, Practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance. This basically means like holding your breath. Stopping all breathing. Others curtailing the eating process offer outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. So this is a long list of different yagas mentioned in the Vedas. So now the punchline. This is verse 30 to 33. These are important verses. Sarve api ete yagna vido yaga kshapitaka mashaha. So he says all these knowers of yagya. So this is the long list of the knowers of yagya mentioned here by Krishna. Sarve ete, all these persons, yagavida, who are knowers of yagya, api. The word api means even though. So even though they're doing different types of activities, this is a censor, even though they're doing different types of yagyas, they're all knowers of yagya, and by their performance of yagya, whichever one it is, yagya kshapita kalmasaha, there's removal of sin by the performance of yagya. Basically, I like this statement. The separation between Brahman or God and the living entity is not distance, it's consciousness. Because we already heard, Tena Sarvagatam Brahman, the Brahman is all pervading. So the separation is not distance, the separation is awareness. So what is it that is separating our awareness from Brahman? Krishna will talk about this later, there's a curtain of Maya. What is that verse? Naham prakasha sarvasha yoga maya samavrita. There's a curtain of Maya that separates us from experiencing that reality. Here, Krishna is saying by the performance of yagya, yagya kshapita kalmasaha. There is a removal of that curtain that is causing distance between you and that higher reality by this performance of yagya. When that starts to take place, yaga shishta amrita bujo. Then you get to enjoy the fruits of yagya in this life because they produce so many wonderful material fruits also. And yanti brahma sanantanam. And in the life thereafter, you attain Brahman, you attain the spiritual reality. So you get to enjoy in this world by performing yagya, and you can enjoy in the world hereafter by spiritual attainment. So these are very nice gifts. So having said that, Krishna says the next verse, which is just a one-liner, Nayam loko asti agyaknasya kuto anya kurusu satama. O best of the Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice, one can never live happily on this planet or in this life, what then to speak of the next? So this is a one-line statement of why the material world sucks today. Before the material world always sucks to some degree because it's dukkhalayama shashvatam. Dukkhalayama shashvatam means it's a house of misery. Himalaya means, I always say this, means a house of snow. Hima means snow. Himalaya means a house of snow. The material world is dukkhalaya, a house of dukkha. So whichever room you go in, you will find that dukkha means suffering is waiting for you. You go into the bathroom, there will be dukkha there. You go into the bedroom, there's dukkha there also. You go into the kitchen, some more dukkha there. Wherever you go, you will find there is dukkha. Just like sometimes you hear people say, I don't know about New York, It's not my type of place because they're suffering here. Then they say, I think I'm going to go to Goa for something. I go to Goa and dukkha is there waiting also. Haribo, my dear Fugu, come. Then they say, I don't know about this Goa after a couple of months. I think I'm going to try Bali. And they go to Bali and dukkha is waiting there also. I will try the mountains of Tibet. They have some romantic idea in their mind. And they go to Tibet, and dukkha is waiting there also. Wherever you go, dukkha is nicely waiting for you. I think actually I just need to be with my family in New York. And you come back to New York to be with your family, and dukkha is waiting for you there also. So there's some level of dissatisfaction built into the material nature itself. But if people live principled lives based on sacrifice, then it becomes prosperous actually. And the experience of dukkha at least becomes very much reduced. But because people don't live lives of sacrifice and they're only living to exploit each other, so it becomes very intolerable by nature. So Krishna is saying this thing here, that for those who are ayagnasya, they perform no yagya, they cannot be happy in this world and what to speak of the next world. So he's encouraging us to perform this yagya. 32. Evam bahuvida yagya vitata brahmano mukhe. So all these different types of yagyas, they are vitata brahmano mukhe. They're coming from the face of the Shastra, the Vedas. Karma jan viditan sarvan. They are born of one's propensity for acting in this world. Evam gantva vimokshashe. If you know this, then you can attain liberation. So remember, Krishna is trying to convince Arjuna to work in this world, but he wants him to work in an enlightened manner. So he says all these different yagyas are coming from the Vedas, and they're born of prescribed work, the propensity for work in this world. So you should work according to your propensity and yagya, and in this way you can attain liberation. So this is an encouragement. In the last verse of the passage, which is very nice, Shreya Dravamaya Yakna Gyana Yakna Parantapa. So all these yagyas, they have two components to them. The external component, which you're actually doing with your external body. And you also have the inner component, the component that is based on knowledge. So Krishna says of these two components, the part based on knowledge is the most important part. Because remember, the whole purpose of these yagyas of work in yagya is to manifest the flower of knowledge. I gave the example of the seed and the sprout, I think on Monday. So you want to plant the seed of enlightened knowledge. I'm trying to be poetic here, but I'm not used to that. I'm just more like a dry philosopher. You plant the seed of knowledge into the ground of. I say yagya. Well, I want yagya to be the watering, so I need what's the ground. What would be the ground in my analogy? I'm not sure what the ground would be in my analogy. You plant the seed of yagya into the ground of your life's activities, your deeds, right? And then you water it with yagya, and in that way, the flower of knowledge starts to sprout and blossom. So he says the external part, what you're actually doing, that is not as important as that inner part, which is what you're trying to manifest through your acts of yagya. So he says that part is higher than just what you're doing externally. And then he gives the reason why. Oops, I lost my page here. Yes. He gives a reason why. Yes, sarva karma kilam parta gyane parisamapyate. All acts, he said, culminate in the manifestation of knowledge. All acts end when knowledge blossoms. All acts means all acts for material things come to an end when there's the awakening of knowledge. And so therefore, he says this knowledge portion is the most important part. So the thrust of this passage is very straightforward. That if you have to act in this world, which you do, there are basically two options. You can act performing yagya, and if you do so, then you can remove the curtain that separates you from that higher reality by those acts of yagya. And if you don't want to do that, then you act in this world impelled by desire, and that creates the bondage of karma. So those are the two choices. So therefore, Arjuna, you should work performing yagya. In this way, you remove that curtain, you become purified, and then you can go to the spiritual reality thereafter. So in the age of Kali Yuga, this could just be said as an end note. There's all these different yagyas are not really functioning very well in this age because people don't know the Vedas, they have no access to them, and so on. So there's one yagya that is specifically prescribed for the age of Kali, and that is called as the Sankirtan yagya. So that is the congregation of chanting of the names of Vishnu and the names of Krishna. So if you don't know about this Deva yagya and the Jnana yagya and the Dravya yagya and the Tapa yagya and all that, which I suspect none of you know about, then you can join us for that Sankirtan yagya, which is going on nicely, at least on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You can join us. Otherwise, we do every morning from 5 o'clock onward. You're also welcome to come there. So this is this particular passage. Are there any final questions or thoughts? You understand everything? Yes? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
I was just thinking, it might sound funny, but I was just thinking, what are some of the kind of sacrifices that we could do like every day? within, like we get up, we have breakfast, go about our daily lives and whatnot. Does anything stick out in your mind about what we can do?
Yes, we can worship Krishna. This is a yagya. Because the word yagya again means Vishnu. Yagya by Vishnu. So to perform yagya means to direct your activities, the activities of the body, the mind, and the senses towards Vishnu, towards Krishna.
Okay.
So by chanting, you perform yagya. You can offer your food to a image of Krishna. That is also a yagya.
Yeah.
You can associate with the devotees. That is definitely a yagya, sacrifice. Especially sometimes they say things that you don't like to hear. And that makes it more yagya. So all these things are different types of yagyas. Krishna will also say, and this is a very important one in your question, at the very end of Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 18, verse number, I think it's verse number 68, 67.
Chapter 8?
This is chapter 18.
Okay.
Yes, chapter 18, verse number. Give me a second here. Where is it at? Yes, verse number 70. He says, by hearing this Bhagavad Gita, you perform a Jnana Yagya. Adyeshtate chaya imam dharmyam sambadam avayoho. Jnana yagnena tenaham ishtasyam iti me mati. And I declare, anyone who studies the sacred conversation of ours worships me by his intelligence. The Sanskrit says he performs the Jnana Yagya, the Yagya of knowledge, by hearing this Bhagavad Gita. So these are all different types of yagyas that we can do on a regular basis. You don't have to only hear Bhagavad Gita when you come to Bhagavad Gita class. You can also pick up Bhagavad Gita and read it. We always joke that our Bhagavad Gita is called Bhagavad Gita as it is, and people leave it on the bookshelf as it is, untouched. For a long time. Many times we've seen this actually, going over people's homes to do home program. And you look at the Gita, it's like, wow, you got a new Gita. They said, no, I had that for like 20 years. It's like looks in immaculate condition because it hasn't been touched. It's been there as it is, nicely for 20 years untouched because there's no time. So you can pick up your Bhagavad Gitas and take a verse every day. Or you can just read all the verses of one chapter every day. It usually takes like 5 minutes. You just read all the verses of one chapter every day. It usually takes 5 minutes. You open up your day like that, like chant one round of Hare Krishna, that's a yagya, and read all the verses of one chapter of Gita every day. Then you'll see your mind getting purified of sin, and that curtain that blocks our ability to see spiritually when moving in the world starts to get removed. And you'll become a much happier person, guaranteed.
So which is the highest form of yagna that is?
What is the?
Which is the highest form of yagna that Krishna prescribes? And second thing is like you said, like there is karma that binds and then we do yagna.
Yes.
Kind of a cyclical process. So how do we kind of stay on track? How do we know we are on track? How much sacrifice is there that you are still on the right path? How are we balancing them? Like we quantify everything in the material world, but how do we quantify it in spiritual?
Well, how much chanting do you do?
How much
Chanting do you do?
chanting?
Chanting or reading a Bhagavad Gita or once a day. How long does it take?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. So there's about 23 hours and and how 55 minutes left of the day. Actually, ideally, you want the whole life to be yagya, the whole life to be lived for a higher cause. When you, even if you say it in conventional terms, which sounds more appealing? A life lived in selfishness or a life sacrificing for a higher cause? Which one is more appealing? I was a dancer. I wanted to be the Black Baryshnikov. I don't know if you know who Baryshnikov is. He's a famous ballet dancer. So I was like, I'm going to be the next. I'm going to be a Black Baryshnikov. I was well on my way. I thought I was such a talented dancer. And anyway, I met the Hare Krishnas, and I was into them. I thought they were cool, but I was still going to be the Black Parishnikov. I wasn't going to give up on my dreams. You know, got to follow your dreams. And so I made an arrangement to come to New York and, be well on my way to becoming a Black Parishnikov. But I was associating with these monks in Chicago, and at one point, I was talking to a friend of mine who was also a dancer. He was 20 years my senior, but he had also danced. He had gone to some of the same schools that I was on my way to go to in New York. And we were having a conversation about a friend of his when he was dancing. And he said she was quite fat. I mean, I'm not fat shaming here, just stating the facts, at least as he related them to me. He said she was quite fat and she had just started training and dance at the age of 25. And her only dream in life was to dance the lead role in Giselle, which is like one of the biggest battles. Wilfred Dunk, he knows all these things. So he said her only dream in life was to dance the principal role in Giselle, which is like one of the most famous ballets in the world. And for the girls, for dancing, you have to start training when you're like 2 or 3. Like the guys, we can start late because they always need guys. The average time for a male dancer is like 9 to 11 to start training. The girls, they have to really start. So she's 25, just started dancing, and she's fat also. I mean, no shade, but you can't really. No guy's gonna try to lift you. You're that big. You're not gonna get hired. So she said her only dream in life was to dance with Leroy and Giselle. So my friends were laying this to me. And I started thinking, I'm like, man, what type of illusion? This illusion thick. But as I said that, I'm sorry. But as I was, kind of joking about it, I thought to myself, it triggered in my mind. I said, well, maybe my whole dream of becoming a Black Parishnikov, maybe that's illusion too. Like it never occurred to me that could be illusion. So I was like, oh my God, that's an illusion. And right at that moment, I kind of went into this sort of, not a crisis, but a kind of existential space. And I started to think, well, I was really loving everything about Christian consciousness, the philosophy, and really the idea of living for, sacrificing myself for a higher purpose, as opposed to just becoming a Black Parishnikov so I can have my picture on a banner, at Lincoln Square or something, doing like some nice, I could walk past it like, yeah, that's me, But so then I decided that I'm going to take a chance and I'm going to join the Hare Krishnas. And I distinctly remember going to the morning program where we greet the deities and these prayers are there. Govinda, Mari Purusha, we sing these prayers in the morning. And I remember the curtains open and seeing the altar, and I was standing behind all these devotees of Krishna, and kind of like, am I really gonna do this? And then I was like, okay. And I never looked back. And of course, it was the best decision that I've ever made in my life. So I have zero regrets. Many times people ask me if I think about the dance world and do I miss it? I'm like, miss it. I was freed. I felt like, what is that movie? Django Unchained? What was that? It was like that sort of experience, like freedom from slavery. It was ecstatic. It's definitely the best choice. And why is that? Because that's what Krishna says in verse 33. He says, Yagya Shishta Amrita Bhujo. By doing yoga, you taste the nectar that comes from performance. You taste the nectar of sacrificing yourself for a higher cause versus living for your own selfish purposes. So ideally, you want your whole life to be that. At every moment, not just 5 minutes, not just 5 hours, but the whole 24 hours. And as far as what is the best yagya, which was your original question, so Krishna will basically say to worship him. After all, yagya means to please Vishnu, and he is pleased by bhakti. We'll see that later on in the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad-Gita. So this, in that way, living your life in devotion to Krishna becomes the highest expression of sacrifice. And the main thrust of our encouragement in the Bhakti Center. Sacrifice your life for the higher cause of serving the personality of Godhead. So You can still, you don't have to jump into it right away, but that's the encouragement. So you can go from 5 minutes to 10 minutes, little by little. Okay, Hari Om Tat Sat. I did have the questionnaire here, but its time is up. If there's any final question or someone can share one thought, which I'd like to hear, what is your one reflection from the class? Sid, you got something?
It'd be really nice to see everything in a spiritual life instead of just the material world.
So what do you have to do for that?
Live your life for Krishna.
Yeah. Yes. So you can chant little Hare Krishna and go on hearing this Bhagavad-Gita. That is Jnana Yagya. And that way the curtain will be removed and you can see. Any other reflections? Yes, you see.
Just one small thing that I was thinking when you said yoga sustains the world, like sacrifice sustains the world,
Yes.
just from how such a lack of reciprocity with
Yes.
anything in our life, basically any facet of our life. There's so much negative things being perpetuated, just
Yes.
exploitation on all fronts.
Mhm.
It's just that's causing so much more suffering than necessary.
Right.
People just have like a base level of like giving back.
Right.
Like, okay, I'm getting knowledge, let me give time, or whatever it may be.
Right. Very nice. Anything else, Brian? You have something? Did you get anything out of the class?
I got a lot. I got a whole page of notes.
Okay, you can share one note.
Sure. Kirtan every day at 5 a.m.
Hare Krishna. All right, we're going to see you tomorrow. What is your name?
The
Yeah.
My name is Nellie. Nellie.
Nelly? You have anything you'd like to share? No? Okay.
I was curious about the time of night for common man is awakening the sage. That whole piece kind of like didn't fully land on me, but it was something that rung really true about it. I always noticed that in the evening, like my discipline wavers, right? And you find yourself like doing things that you maybe you weren't going to be doing
Yes.
intentionally, and so that line really rung true, and I'm looking forward to learning more.
That's one of my favorite verses. Yeah. What is night for common man is the morning program of the Hare Krishnas. Because they're leaving the clubs at 4 o'clock to go to sleep, and we're waking up that time to go to the morning program. Yeah. But the meaning of the verse is that the common man is asleep to spiritual life, and they're awake to the life of exploitation, searching in the world for my enjoyment. I can enjoy. And the Chicago ashram, we used to use the word enjoy. We used to say that it was like a curse word or like a nasty word. So sometimes someone will come up, like you have some prasadam. Someone, the devotee would say, "Did you enjoy that?" And we would all look at him. Enjoy. Enjoy. Because it's like if you think of it, it's like I enjoyed you. This is like we used to say like that. It's like very exploitative. That's the spirit in this world. It's a spirit of exploitation. I enjoyed that. But you hear it say it like that, it sounds very horrible, but that's what it is. You go to the movie, I enjoyed that. You go to the restaurant, I enjoyed that. You go to the kirtan, I enjoyed that. I really enjoyed it. You read a book, I enjoyed that. It's horrible, actually. That is the conscious. It's the world of exploitation for my own gratification. So that's what we're awake to. We're very awake to that. And if it's not giving me any enjoyment, then I have no interest. Just like now, when a person is speaking, instead of it being like an educational process, it has to be entertaining. Otherwise, I can't enjoy it. That wasn't enjoyable. But the person's cracking jokes, and the jokes don't have to be having anything to do with the class also. And many times I've had this experience also. I ask someone, what did you get out of the class? And they'll start sharing all the jokes. I'm like, well, what about the message? There's, I was asleep to that, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad-Gita. So that, to be awake, the common man is awake to this enjoyment. Only if I can enjoy it, that I'm taking interest. And the sage, the realized person, is asleep to that trying to exploit for his own gratification. And he's awake to spiritual life, how he can serve, how he can give back, sacrifice. So this is the difference. Pashyatomuni, he sees that, oh, this is a situation where I could also exploit. But instead of exploiting, he sacrifices. That is the difference. And we see, here's an opportunity to sacrifice, but I'll exploit instead. Horrible situation, but this is the conscience of common man. So,
What was that word?
exploit.
The person who seeks to sacrifice in an opportunity they might be able to.
Yes, a common man.
Oh.
He thinks he doesn't even think this, but here's a situation where he could sacrifice for a higher purpose, but instead, I'll exploit. And it's reversed for the spiritual person. Here's a situation where I could exploit, but I will give, I'll sacrifice for a higher purpose. There's a difference. So what type of person we're going to be? Anyway, probably the former, just default. This will take some time to get over that. 269. Yeah, it's one of my favorite verses from the Gita. It's a very deep verse. Hariyam Tat Sat. Thank you all very much for coming. Please continue to come and perform this Jnana Yagya so we can give up this enjoyment mentality, which is not very good for us. Hare Krishna. Later. Did you enjoy that? I enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that. That was really enjoyable. Look at you with the philosophical answer.
So if I'm not supposed to enjoy this, what am I supposed to do?
Oh, we have to learn how to give. It's not that enjoyment doesn't come. So Krishna is saying, Yagya Shishta Amrita Bhuja. So he says from Yagya, you will taste the nectar that Yagya provides. That means it also provides enjoyable experiences, but that's not your interest. There's a default thing that comes, but it's not the interest. The interest is sacrifice. Again, giving for a higher purpose than myself and than my own myopic sense of what is enjoyment for me.
Yeah, and our world isn't even really like ready for people to sacrifice. Like if I were to come over to you right now and start bowing in front of you and just sacrifice, follow you around as your servant, like because that's the sacrifice that I want to offer you.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Oh, no, we would say for that, you say sacrifice means to chant Hare Krishna for it. Well, this Bhakti Center. So we